if you would have told me a year ago that this is what my life would look like, I would have looked at you like you're crazy. Because 8 months ago, I got married. And 2 months ago, I filed for divorce.
I don't know if there's like a chivalry epidemic, but I can honestly say I have never once received flowers from a man.
So 70% of divorces are initiated by women.
This woman is selfish. She got married just 8 months ago, only to divorce the man 2 months later. She didn't want a marriage. She wanted the wedding. This is a perfect example of someone who cared more about the ceremony than the commitment.
So I'm 31, single for the first time in 11 years, and I'm living alone for the first time in my entire life. And if you would have told me a year ago that this is what my life would look like, I would have looked at you like you're crazy. Because 8 months ago, I got married. And 2 months ago, I filed for divorce. My ex and I were together for 10 years when we got married. And I think we kind of just did it because that's just what you do, right? I mean, our relationship wasn't perfect, but it wasn't necessarily broken, so why not? But something about making it official woke me up. I had been living on autopilot for so long, I don't think I even realized how unhappy I was. And when we finally called it quits, it felt like I was reborn. It wasn't that the relationship was bad, it just wasn't right. And when you were trying to fit a square peg into a round hole for so long, everything in your life just starts to feel hard. So now that I am on the other side of it, things are starting to feel so much easier.
Now, many people were calling this woman selfish, and I agree, because it took her 10 years to figure out she didn't actually like this man. Think about that for a second. A full decade of someone's life. That's not confusion. That's indecision with consequences. What she essentially did was waste this man's time he will never get back. She chose to stay, chose to accept a proposal, chose to walk down the aisle, all while still being unsure. Marriage isn't something you try out. It's a commitment you make when you're certain. And instead of being honest years earlier and letting him move on with his life, she waited until everything became official and binding before deciding it wasn't for her. 10 years together, only 8 months married, and just 2 months later, she files for divorce. There are many women like this out there. They want the wedding, but not the marriage. Now she's on TikTok, turning the entire situation into a personal branding story, talking about being 31 and starting over as if it's some empowering glow-up.
My ex and I were together for 10 years when we got married, and 6 months later, I told him I wasn't happy. But the truth is, neither of us were. We had been living on autopilot for years, and I think over the years, we had just forgotten how to communicate. And even though we were best friends, our relationship was suffering. After my divorce, I pretty much jumped into dating right away. And I know it sounds sudden, but I honestly just thought I was ready. I had been in a relationship my entire adult life, and I'd never really experienced what it was like to be fully independent and single. So I decided to dip my toe into dating and just see what it was like. And at first it was fun and even a little empowering just to be able to do whatever I wanted. But I started to realize that I was kind of using it as a crutch. Even though I wanted to be alone, I was terrified to be lonely. And I just didn't know how to sit with that. So this month I finally did. I had to sit with the quiet and just let myself be lonely. And I'm realizing that I actually love my own company. It's just a little bit of an adjustment, but I'm not waiting on anyone, and that feels really good.
Now she goes on to making excuses later, but let's talk about this part right here because it says everything you need to know. She admitted that she jumped straight back into dating immediately after the divorce ended, not after healing, not after taking time to reflect on what went wrong, not after doing any real emotional cleanup, right after. And what does that tell you? It tells you the relationship was already emotionally over, long before the paperwork was finished. You don't move on that fast unless the detachment happened during the marriage or even years earlier. That rapid turnaround isn't strength, it's proof that she had already checked out mentally while still letting the relationship continue physically. It also shows that there was no serious self-reflection happening at all. Now she did mention that she's keeping herself lonely, and that statement alone is incredibly revealing. feeling, because loneliness isn't something you schedule or protect. It's something you end up in when you don't know how to build or maintain healthy emotional bonds. Saying you're keeping yourself lonely is basically admitting that despite jumping straight back into dating, there's still a void inside that the new attention isn't actually filling.
Dating after divorce is the most complicated thing ever. There's talking stages, there's dating stages, there's
these women that married young, they have no idea how good they have it and how much worse it's going to be on the dating market, because they're probably the baddest bitch at their high school. Because a lot of the women that married young, I mean, they were the first round draft pick in high school, but now you're going to be the last round draft pick in the city.
That's because marriage benefits men, not women. And nowadays, once women have figured out that said marriage is like not working for them like they thought it would, they're like, yeah, fuck this. I'm getting divorced. So women initiating divorce just means that we know our value. And we are starting to recognize that y'all suck.
Typical answer from the sidelines. This woman says women initiating divorce means they know their value, when in reality it often means the exact opposite. If value was truly known, those women wouldn't be walking into lifelong commitments without clarity, only to exit once the fantasy wears off. Knowing your value would have shown up before the wedding, not after the vows. What's being labeled as knowing your value is usually just retroactive justification, a way to frame walking away from hard situations as strength instead of admitting uncertainty, poor decision-making, or emotional immaturity. Ending a marriage isn't proof of confidence. Sometimes it's proof that someone never truly understood what commitment required in the first place. She's also justifying why 70% of women file for divorce by claiming it's simply because men suck. And that's another classic example of how complex issues get reduced to lazy, one-sided blame. That explanation is emotionally convenient, but it's intellectually empty. It removes all accountability from one side and places the entire failure of modern relationships at the feet of men.
So I made a few posts a while back talking about my divorce, and those posts reached a lot of people. And with that came a lot of assumptions. I wasn't going to address these ridiculous comments that I've been getting, but I feel that it's time to say something. I was not being selfish by leaving. The marriage wasn't right for either of us, and I was just the first one to actually say it out loud. We were best friends, and we were happy for a lot of those years. But the truth is, people change a lot in 10 years, and that's normal. So leaving was a choice that I made for both of us, and we're both a lot happier now, and we're still friends, we still respect each other. And I didn't take any of his money, to all the men in the comments saying that I did. But here's the other thing. If you are in a relationship and your partner isn't happy, why are you so bothered by the fact that they could leave? That is honestly what you should want. That is honestly what you should want. I don't know why anyone would want to be in a relationship with someone who isn't happy. That's not a partner, that's a prisoner. So anyways, that's all I had to say, and that's probably the last time that I will address the ridiculous people in the comments. So yeah, move along, enjoy your life, and stop worrying about what other people's relationships look like.
Well, maybe if your marriage was actually treated as sacred, maybe if you didn't put your private business out on the internet for millions to critique, people wouldn't be commenting on it or sharing their opinions in the first place. Once you turn your marriage and divorce into public content, you invite public judgment. You don't get to control the narrative while benefiting from the attention. But the bigger issue here is, this woman was with this man for a full decade, and only after getting legally married decided she wasn't happy. That should be impossible if commitment was taken seriously from the start. Happiness isn't something you suddenly discover or lose 2 months into marriage, unless the uncertainty was already there long before the vows. And this isn't a one-off case. It's becoming increasingly common. A lot of modern marriages are being entered into with half commitment. People say, "I do," while still keeping one emotional foot out the door. They want the security of marriage without accepting the responsibility of sticking through discomfort. They romanticize commitment, but secretly reserve the option to exit the moment reality replaces fantasy.
So I don't know how I keep finding these videos, but they keep coming to me. I promise you I was not searching for this. So this lady is signing her divorce papers. And the comments, I already went through it. A lot of people are just like, oh my God, you're free. You signed your divorce papers. And, you know, you would think she's probably leaving because her husband is a bad guy, but she shows her reason for leaving in the comment section. But yeah, she signed her divorce papers. And the song choice is interesting. So in the comment section, some guy says, this generation ain't built for marriage. And then he puts a yawn emoji, and about 4,000 people like it. And this is what she said. And this is just one of my degrees. Never settle. She's showing off her degree. She's like, hey, man, I got degrees, and that's why I'm getting a divorce. I mean, again, a lot of times they tell you it's because of like abuse or something crazy. But in her caption, she said, never settle. And when you go through the comments, you know, a lot of people are just celebrating divorce, man. You know, so maybe Buddy's onto something, you know, it's just crazy. We're just not built for marriage, I guess.
Did you know that here in the US, about 70 of divorces are filed by women? I mean, it's official data. It's not a hearsay, and you can Google it. And yeah, in Germany, it's more women than men too. Not that many, but it's more women too. And now we really have to think about it. Why is that? What in the relationship isn't working? Studies, they show that women notice emotionally disconnects or lack of support, unequal responsibility, or the mental load of the household and kids way earlier and more intensely than men. So they claim they have to go to work and they need to take care of the house. And in the past, women, they often didn't work. So they stayed home and they stayed with their man because they had to financially or socially too. And today, many women, they can just leave because they're independent, they have careers, and they have options. So if the relationship isn't meeting their needs, guess what happens? They file. Sure, men might feel unhappy too, but studies show they often stay longer in unhappy marriages, sometimes because they avoid confrontation. I have to do a video about that. And sometimes because they rely on the status quo. So this isn't about blaming anyone or something. It's about human nature and expectations and fairness. And are too many women today think leaving is the solution instead of working through problems? I mean, men, they tend to stay and they take responsibility far more often, even when things are rough. Women, they don't. And it's not something to celebrate. It's really sad, actually, but it's reality. And now I want to hear from you. Do you think men should notice the signs sooner? Or is it natural that women take the lead here? I mean, comment below. Let's discuss. And I need to do a second part, how to see the signs.
Like I mentioned before, many of these women jump into these marriages because both feet aren't in the door. They have one foot in and one foot out. They aren't fully committed. And that mindset is exactly why so many marriages are failing today. The vows get spoken, the ring gets put on, the wedding photos go up. But the actual internal decision to stay through difficulty never happens. The person enters marriage still entertaining doubts, still scanning for options, still prioritizing feelings over responsibility. So when reality hits, boredom, routine, conflict, unmet expectations, instead of leaning in and working on the marriage, they choose the easy route and walk away. Because working on a marriage takes discipline, walking away takes none. And most of the time, the reasons given aren't about safety or true incompatibility. They're self-focused motivations. I'm not happy. I need to find myself. I deserve more. This doesn't feel right anymore. None of those statements address commitment. They only address personal desire. That's the problem. Marriage was never meant to be about maximum personal satisfaction at all times. It was about building something bigger than yourself with another person. When the mindset is selfish from the beginning, the relationship is already on borrowed time.